Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time of day it is for you guys as you're watching this. For us, it's a fairly chilly November afternoon, but we're going to do a fairly quick job here in the garage and changing the differential fluid on the 2019 Rubicon. It's got about 45,000 kilometers on the clock, so we're a little ahead of schedule to make that change. But the job got into my head as something to do, so I'm going to do it while I'm still thinking of it and motivated to do it. Okay, job itself, relatively easy. Drain the old fluid out, put the new fluid in, and we got a few basic bits of equipment to do that. Okay folks, so our list of equipment today is pretty simple. We have some full synthetic Pennzoil 7590 axle oil for the front differential. And because we do tow with this Jeep, we are going to put some 75-140 in the rear. With the ARB differential covers that we have, we do need a 8mm hex bit on there to loosen the fill and drain plugs. I'm also very curious how much is going to come out of each differential. So I have an old water bottle here that I've marked up in 100ml increments. See how much comes out of each one and make sure I put the same amount back in. And because the fill hole is in quite an awkward position, we have a big syringe here to draw fluid out of the bottles and pump it up into the fill hole via a fairly lengthy little bit of rubber hose here. So this shouldn't be a particularly long or difficult job. Well, let's get right to it. Okay, so stage one, we're going to undo the fill plug, which is all the way up here. If I can get line of sight on it here with the camera. So it's right up here. I'm going to loosen that off. Once I'm sure that that comes out quite easily, I'm going to take out the drain plug. Of course, let it drain into the jug here. We'll see how much comes out. And once it's fully drained, we'll simply refill with the new fluid to the same volume. Okay, so we've got the fill plug out. And now we're just going to get the drain plug out of here. Again, with this 8mm hex socket. Try and keep the jug positioned below so that we can catch the fluid the moment that it starts to come. And there is a very strong magnet on this fill plug here. And there we go. So we're going to inspect this and just see if there is any magnetic sludge on here. There's a little bit, which is very, very fine, which is actually quite normal. So all good there. We'll give this a little clean off. And we'll let the rest of that drain out. Okay, so it's now basically slowed down to a drip here instead of the constant stream, and it looks like we got about 850 milliliters out of here, give or take a little bit either way. I am going to check and see if it should be this brown after such relatively low kilometers. And I've got to tell you folks, the smell of this is something else, and I'm now super looking forward to having to do the rear one and smell it all over again here. But we're going to get this dried off. We're going to get the drain plug back in, and then we'll move on to the next stage of refilling it here. So we'll get that a little clean. Going and get the, there we go, the drain plug. That magnet is very strong, so apparently that was a two-handed job, which who knew? And we'll get this started off by hand here, and I'm going back in to the threads. So I don't know how clear this is going to be on camera here, but we've got the other end of the hose from this massive syringe going up into the fill plug. And it's taken some degree of effort to get it to go in and come out of the syringe, but it is slowly but surely going in there. And this thing's got about a 200 milliliter capacity by the sounds of things. So we're slowly but surely transferring the fluid across. Okay, so the final thing we're going to check is we're going to put the dipstick back in. It did previously come to about here. I think we kind of essentially got a water line there with that slightly grubby looking piece. So we're going to see if it comes to the same spot as it did before, and if it does, or even remotely close, then we'll call it done. I think this is going to be a bit of faffing about, so maybe we'll just wait until we pull that back out. Okay, so while I'm waiting for the oil to settle in the differential and double check the dipstick measurement, according to the level in the bottle, I have put in as much as I removed, so all should be well. I'm always a little doubtful of myself, so I will double check it after I do the rear. Okay, so the first thing to say about the rear is just how much easier it is to access everything. Obviously a much simpler setup at the back of the Jeep, and we've already got the fluid draining here, and as you can tell as well, quite a bit more coming out of the rear differential as was in the front. So it looks like we're going to have a bottle and a half or so going into the rear versus just under one bottle of new fluid going into the front differential. But we'll let this finish draining and do a bit of quick math and see how much we need to top up this one by. Okay, so that was a pretty quick and easy job to do. Me really taking my time and trying to film as best I could, especially with a phone whose battery died. That was bad planning on my part. Probably took me about an hour to do both front and rear differentials. And a lot of that simply waiting for the oil to drain out. So it's something you could probably just start that process, walk away, do something far more interesting than watching oil run out, come back 20 minutes later and then tighten in the fill plug and fill each one. Obviously, we've got a couple of containers that you can use. You could be doing both front and rear drains at the same time. And so this is the old oil. I just put it into a container here, and I'll take it to a parts store tomorrow for proper disposal. Please never, ever, ever pour your oil down the drain or anything crazy like that. We want to be environmentally conscious about what we're doing here. Front and rear, 2,100 milliliters between them, roughly 850 in the front and 1,250 in the rear. So a little bit more in the rear than in the front, which means for a front differential change with the ARB cover on a JL, you are going to need just one of these bottles of 75/90 to do that. And if, like me, you tow with your Jeep, then you're going to need 1.5 bottles of this 75 W140. If you do not tow with your Jeep, then the 7590, same as goes in the front, is what's going to be needed. And you're going to need about yay much. If you don't have the ARB diff covers, then you're not going to have the same challenge that I did reaching the fill plugs. But you are going to require a little bit more fluid. And so we'll pay just to get a couple of bottles of each one. And worst case there, you have some leftovers for next time. Okay, folks, well, I hope that this was helpful to see. I know that there's a few other videos out there on it, but this was my first time doing it. And yeah. There we go, ready for another 45,000 kilometers and differential oil change front and rear. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.